Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime, here at my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 3, The Weird World of Wyrm. And this was an interesting episode in that, as an episode, I thought it was pretty fun, but where it's placed in the series, I don't think was the best, because it didn't really relate to the main plot. They referenced the main plot and kind of set that kind of going again, and that, okay, by the end of the episode, they do have a lead on the Triceratron ship, which is a nice thing to know for going forward, but this episode was just it was kind of one of those episodes that I never really like that much with this series, and that I have a bad feeling now that a lot of the episodes this season are going to be like this, and that is just an episode. It is a new character introduced in this episode who's only going to really be in this episode, and nothing of note really ended up coming from the episode. Now, what I liked was that the concepts that they introduced here were actually really interesting. The idea of these three, chaotic, like, what do they call them, fifth dimensional beings who are insanely powerful, who are like locked up by like the laws of the universe, and one of them is unleashed in this episode. That's a really interesting concept, and if this show had gone for a different tone, that could have been a big plot that they went with. But they played this guy up for comedy like the entire episode. Even when he was like clicking his fingers and destroying multiple planets, they still kind of played it up for comedy. Like, they kind of made it serious, but it was still kind of like, okay, this guy has insane power, but because of his personality, he's so arrogant and eager to trick everyone, that kind of negates how powerful overall he is, and that's how the turtles are able to, Casey basically is able to kind of trick him in the end, which, again, the episode itself was fun, but did it really add to anything? Like, are they ever going to bring this character back? I assume at some point we'll meet the other two chaotic beings that we saw kind of small glimpses of. I think they have to at some point introduce them, but will they do anything of note with them, or will they just be two random episodes where they happen to come across those two? But there could be some interesting stuff that comes up with that concept. But in terms of the main gist of this episode, it was kind of a Casey focused episode, which in itself I think is interesting, but again, it's like, okay, it was just a fun little thing focusing a bit more on Casey. There was no character development for him in this episode, and that because they reset time and only April kind of remembers a little bit of it, none of basically his experiences here meant anything. So again, that just further enhances the fact that this episode technically, in terms of continuity, never actually happened. So none of it affects anything going forward. It was just like, this stuff exists, you as the viewers know that it exists, but it was just an episode. So the whole Casey becoming smart, that being one of the wishes, that being the kind of gimmick of this creature worm, that if he grants you three wishes, but if you do use all three of them, you free him from his prison and he can basically do what he wants. Again, that kind of presents the idea of what actually locked him up in the first place. Like, what being was powerful enough to do that in the first place? That's a concept that I want explored. The kind of lore of the Turtles universe was kind of presented a little bit here, which I quite liked as that little glimpse into that. But yeah, in terms of the character stuff, I don't think this episode was that good. Because, okay, they had the jokes about, okay, Casey wishes for the space zombies, you have a cool fight there. Then Donnie accidentally wishes that Casey wouldn't be an idiot anymore, so he's made super smart. And, the scene where they made him super smart was cool, and I think it was kind of meant to reference Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, clearly with the colour and the eyes and stuff like that. But again, the idea of Casey being a focus wasn't really like done that well, because Wyrm was so much of the focus, and it was just like smart Casey was just in the background and then saved the day in the end, outsmarting Wyrm by siding with him and then saying, okay, I'll join you. You want me to destroy the turtles? Give me a wish and I'll do it in the best way possible. And then he uses that wish to reverse things effectively, kind of using the thing they always do with the whole 3-wish kind of magical creature thing, in that the creature always plays on the fact that most people, in the excitement of having these wishes, never word it perfectly so where they'll get exactly what they want. Whereas Casey thinks it out perfectly and is just like, okay, this is very simple. I want it so that we never actually encountered the cube. None of this happened. That completely gets us out of this situation. Kind of cleverly done, but because it kind of mind wipes everyone of this event ever happening, I just sort of wonder, like, what's going to be the result of this? Does this episode have any meaning to the series overall? And I think that's a key point to bring up. You know, like, some people criticize me as a reviewer for being maybe overly negative about some of this stuff in this show, but I think that's a key point here, in that, like, by the end of this episode, what was the point of encountering this thing? As I said, I'll definitely praise this episode for introducing all this kind of lore stuff, the idea of these 3 chaotic creatures, but they mind-wiped people, so technically the characters never encountered them, so it's weird. Anything else of note? You know, we had April kind of referencing the fact that she's psychic a little bit, but again, I don't think that's even been explored that well. We know she has powers, but the infrequency with which she uses them, and then anyone asks for an explanation, is still really odd about what they're doing. I assume just because of the intro and we see her using them like she has control. At some point we'll get some episodes as the season goes on where she does get some sort of a grasp on how to control her powers and can use it more kind of regularly herself, and that should be cool, because she's definitely one of my favourite characters, even though they haven't used her the best. But that was about really it to the episode. It also introduced us to, I suppose, what our TV show that the characters are watching is going to be this season, and that's the Chris Bradford show, which was kind of random that, like, they had so many, like, fights involving him and the kind of VR training simulations they have going on. It was actually pretty cool to see the kind of evolution of his character from Chris Bradford to Dog Pound, or Dogface, I think it's Dog Pound, then to Razar. But again, he's not the best character in the show, but it was cool that they used him as part of their training. And then they're watching an old show of his on the TV. But I don't know, they're just going for the Chuck Norris jokes, because the character design is basically Chuck Norris, so, you know, sometimes fun, but I think they're overusing it a bit already. So yeah, that's the review. It's definitely, I don't think it's been the worst episode this season, but it kind of has me thinking that this is just what the season's going to be. They've kind of done it again, that once more another season of Turtles has a lot of potential, but they're just going to use it on random episodes that don't really mean anything to the story overall, and will be basically forgotten come the end of the season. And that's kind of what this episode felt like. I hope they don't overdo it like they did in season 2 and 3, and they actually, like, have a really good run of kind of character plot focused episodes that really make this kind of meaningful. And that, let's not forget, as far as the Turtles are aware at this point in time, like, they're doing this to save everyone on Earth. They're saving the Earth from being destroyed effectively, and it just doesn't feel like there's that intensity that the series should have at this point in time. But, you know, we'll see how this series goes. We're only on episode 3. You can sort of forgive it for early on, maybe having a few of these kind of lighter episodes, but I think for the series, you know, to be better going forward, they should get to the plot quicker rather than later. So that has been the review. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode and the review. Other than that, thanks for watching this video, and bye.